And so I've been at the Balanced Living Conference in Toronto, and it's been quite the interesting experience. Let me just share this. Where is it? Okay, hold on. Should be a way to. Oh, there it is. Um, yeah, it's been quite an interesting experience because yesterday, what's her name? It's sorry, Andrea Clayton was speaking again, and she said this question. She was like, no, she said this statement. She was like, when you are working, God's resting. And when you are resting, God's working. And I heard that statement. I was like, oof. Like, I thought that was so, it was so simple, but it was so deep. And it made me reminisce because there's times when there's like an issue. And automatically, my instinct is to fix it. Like my first instinct is to be like, okay, well, I need to fix this issue. I know God's there, but like it's like God, you need my help. So I need to fix it. I need to come up with solutions. I need to figure out how to increase this or how to like solve this problem. And she said something where she said, sometimes, we think of like unshakable faith as, oh, you're always moving. But sometimes it's just still. Like sometimes, like being a force to reckon with when it comes to your faith doesn't always mean that you're moving and you're trying to figure it out. And I know this is counter because um I know it's counter because when there's an issue, you want to just fix it. Like you don't want to just be calm and just wait around and be like, okay. And I find that's the hardest thing, especially if you're anxious. And I guess that's why it's like you shouldn't worry or be anxious, right? But it's like when you are in an anxious state or you're in a worry state, you tend to not make great decisions. In my experience at least, and I think it's in most people's experience, it's just like you don't make great decisions. And so I don't know, when she just brought that up, I was like, dang. I'm like, I never heard someone say that. Like, if you're working, God's resting, right? And then when I heard that, I was like, what? I'm working and God's resting. Huh. And then she's like, but if you're resting, like God's working. And I was like, well, I rather the latter. And so basically, I think what that meant to me when I heard it, what it meant to me when I heard it, I was like, it's so deep because I thought about myself and I was like, how many times do I actually sometimes just rest? So it doesn't mean that you're not doing anything, but you're just doing what you know to do and you're not going beyond anything else. Like you're like, you know what I mean? Like you're not trying to do, you're not trying to go beyond what God instructs you to do, right? Because sometimes he'll give you instructions and sometimes he doesn't say anything else after that. So it's like, what do you do then? Hey, Keisha, how are you? Yeah, good to see you too. I literally just started. I think this is the first time I've seen you. You called me in the beginning. I tried to post it this time in the and I posted it on the post thing, the community poll. I wonder if that's how you got to see me. But yeah, no, girl. Like today was it was good, but I'm talking about yesterday, because there was so much to unpack. Where I don't know if you heard what I said before, but I was like, it was just based on what I heard one of Andrea Clayton say. Where so the topic was, are you resting and letting God work? Because she said one of her topics that made me really ponder was when you're working, God's resting. And when you're working, God's resting. And when you're working, God rests. And I was like, oh dang. Like when she said that, and I was like, well, I don't want God to do the resting. I want to be doing the resting. I want to be the one in peace. And it just made me realize, like, I just thought back for all the times where I was like, no, God, I'm gonna take charge. Like, I know what I'm doing. Like, I have so much knowledge, right? And I think it's hard for people, especially if you always are very solution oriented. I think a lot of people are, or very resourceful. Um, so usually you would want to find a solution because that's what they teach you, right? Like if you're working, like when you're working in a job, most of the time they'll teach you to be a problem solver, all that stuff, right? They tell you, oh, you need to be a problem solver, take initiative. But the thing is, it's like that balance of like bringing that in your face. I'm not saying you don't take any action. That's not what I'm saying. But it's like remembering, like, okay, like when God is on your, like when God is there for you, especially if you have faith, like He's there to help you. Like he's there. He's there to work if you allow him to work. Like it's like God is a gentleman. So if he sees you, and I got that image of me working, and literally I could see God saying where he was like, it's okay, go ahead and work, do your thing. I'll wait here, thank you. And like I saw that image, I was like, oh no. And I think that's something like I struggle with. Like there's sometimes I want to like I like that control. I think it's hard. I love that control. Um I love being able to I don't know. I like having control of the situation, right? And I think it's very hard for me to sometimes just be like, okay, like let God deal with it. And that's something that I've gotten better at. Like I wonder what your experience is with that, when it comes to like, letting God take care of the situation. Um, like I've had moments where my hand was against the wall. Like I don't know if I've told this story before, where so basically, sometime last year, when I was transitioning, I remember I got behind in rent, and basically, I started to get frantic because in the past um, so it wasn't last year. Sorry, it was 2 years, 2 years ago. And I remember, no, this was while I started mixing it up. So this is while I was running my business. And it got to a month where it was just a very hard month. Like it just like transitioned, and I was just trying to figure out sales. Like I was trying to figure out how to find my ideal audience. Hey, hi Emin, how are you? And I remember I started getting behind on rent. And I think it went 1 month, 2 months, and then I think every bad thing was happening, and I think my transmission went out as well on my car. And then I remember there was many nights where I would just cry. Like I tried to read sermons, but it was a very felt very unhopeful. Um, and I'm from Toronto. Where are you from? But yeah, and I was very it didn't feel very a hopeful situation. And I was so frantic and I didn't know what to do. But then all of a sudden I got this voice. Like I think was grace, and then all of a sudden I heard a voice. Like I thought it was just mine, but something kept on saying, because I had a mentor at the time, like for this business, the marketing business. And then a voice kept on saying, ask your mentor to see if you can do anything, to at least like in terms of whether I help him in his own business, like with tasks, because he has a ton of employees. You get the drift. And I kept on pushing it on the side because I was like, God, I'm not doing that. I remember thinking like, I'm not doing that. That's a weird thought. And I kept on getting a thought. Ask your mentor to see if you could do anything. Like whether it's like, I don't know, like cleaning out his inbox. Like it was one of those. And then it kept on getting stronger, but it came to a point where I was so overwhelmed, and I was like, I'm not doing anything. I'm not asking. And you know what happened? It was so weird. Um, he actually messaged me. And because we usually meet every Friday or whatever. Like, so it wasn't like uncommon. But he's like, hey, I have to ask you something when we get on the call. So obviously I was all nervous. I was like, what is this man about to ask? Right? Like, what is it about? And then you know he got on the call. Had like he had no like idea. Like I think he had an idea about the car, but he didn't know the extent of how stressed out it was. And do you know he was like, I've seen you're very persistent and I like you've been working very hard in the business and I just want to help. He's like, what do you need? He's like, I'll help you get your car out. Like it was one of those things. And then he's like, I'll help you your rent, blah blah blah. Like everything. So he ended up giving me like a big chunk. I told him everything I needed. Like it was nuts. Because in my mind, I was like, what? And to me, what was weird, because I was all stressed out, with rent, all this stuff. And he's like, I'm just going to help you because I see you're such a good business person and like you work very hard. And this is coming from a seven figure business owner. And I was like, that's nuts. Because in my head, I'm like, man, I was stressed out. Like, and yeah, he did that. And and then we started like working even closer on the business. Like obviously, like in exchange, he like got a small percentage of the business. But honestly, he was one of the best mentors ever. And I remember I got off the phone. I was so shocked, and I was like, no way. Like no. So basically, I started back from zero. Like I was in the negative. I got wiped up clean, and it was like started from zero again. Like that is nuts. And it made me. And I think in that moment, it made me realize. I was like, I remember thinking, I spent all that time stressed out, like telling God, like, where are you? You said you're gonna show up, blah 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 blah. Like, and I have to admit, I'm a professional holding God to His word. I'm one of those people where I'll be like, God, where are you? Like, you're supposed to be here, da da da. And then I sometimes feel so like, I don't want to say guilty. Maybe it's conviction. I feel so guilty because I'm like, I wasted all that emotion, like, and then feeling this way that for you to just show up. And it made me realize it was like, okay, it's like I can actually rest. Like, if there's something that's going on in my life, it doesn't mean that, like, I don't have to be frantic about it because if you're a Christian, like God promises that He'll not forsake you. But like I still feel like I still have to learn it over and over again because every time I'll be pointing fingers at God, I'm the first person who will be like, God, you said you're not here. Da, 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 da. I'm one of those people. And it's like every time he shows up, I'll always be like, oh, oh. And it's sometimes it's more than what you thought. Like I honestly thought it was gonna be in place of a job or something like that. And you know what happened before? I think that was the week. Okay, so let me go back a little bit. So that was a week where I believe a week ago, okay, I actually had went to a job fair. And my luck was the job fair, all the jobs are gone. And I remember sitting with the manager and he was like, oh, there's there was no more spots left. And I remember I was begging. I was like, oh, please, like I need the job. Like, but and this was a location where, because remember I didn't have my car, right? It was a location where I couldn't even take the bus. Like, it was that serious. Like, I couldn't even take the bus to the location. But I was like, no, I need to just get an Uber and use the last dollars I have. And then I remember at that point when I was walking out the door. So this was a week before. Soon as the sliding door opened, I heard a voice say, who told you to go to this job? And I remember I looked back. No one was there. It was so loud. It's like, I didn't tell you to go to that job. It said, oh, I didn't tell you to apply for that job. And I was like, but God, I need a job. Da, da, da. He's like, I didn't tell you to do that. Go back and work on your business. He literally told me that. I heard the voice. And he's like, now you're gonna have to deal with it because you're the one that spent money on the Uber. So that's your issue. I heard it clear. He sounded like a father at that moment. Like literally, he sounded like a dad being like, "What? Why would you do that? I didn't tell you to do that. Do that." And then basically a week later, that happened with a mentor. And I think like the month after, I made like my 5 figures and like was better. Isn't that crazy? And he said, yes, I think a lot of my struggle with, I know as I'm getting older, I am praying more and more to have the power to relinquish control because he has all the power. Exactly. So today, like when they were doing a session, the pastor came up in the conference and the balanced living conference. And she did something different where she was basically, it was like they called it a warfare prayer. And it was basically about, crushing your enemies and like, praying that if anyone is like, you know, um, you know, And if anyone is basically planning something ill against you, and we start praying against it, and she made us write our expectations on the card, and she'd always line it up to the word. But we would write our expectation on the card, and then we would pray over it, right? We would pray over every single thing, like anything where we're like, okay, God, if there's any oppressors, like we're gonna pray over it. If there's anyone stopping you or any opportunities that needs to be open, and praying over anxiety. And it's funny you say that with power because at that moment I was like, in my head, I was like, I feel like I need to do more prayers like this, right? I was like, I don't think I do enough of those type of prayers because I think we sometimes we get comfortable and we take it for granted, and we forget like there's people out there that doesn't want you to be successful, right? Like sometimes people wonder why they're in poverty, right? And sometimes it's not because listen, it's not because like, oh, you don't have a job or you don't know how to manage your money. Yeah, stuff is going up, but sometimes it's spiritual. Like poverty is spiritual, and it's like you have to pray over your wealth, your finances. Like, but sometimes you don't think about it because in the moment you're like, oh, I don't know. So do you know? And I'm being very transparent here. Every year I had that business, and it was the weirdest thing is that every year I had that business. By the end of the year, I would always go back to $0 in my business, not my bank account, but in the business. Right. So I would have all my clients would be going well. And then for some reason, by the end of the year, it was like always zero. And then basically the next year, I would always have to start back up again. And obviously, because I had the skill, right? So I'd always build it right back up again. And what was happening is I was always accepting it. And I was like, I'm going to just accept it. I was like, oh, it is what it is. Right. Because I understand there's turnovers. There's a lot of turnover when you have clients and all that in the agency. But then one day someone was like, the enemy will come and steal, like you'll steal your crop. And I was like, I never would have thought of that. So when it happened again, so by the third time, I didn't accept it. And but this is when I was starting to transition. But I told God, I'm like, no, by the end of this year, I'm not starting with zero. And that didn't happen again. Like this time, it's like, and then that's when I started learning more about financial literacy, everything. But it had nothing to do with spending. It was just every time I would go back to zero. And then the third time it happened, I was like, I'm not accepting this. And then sometimes there's things that we accept that we shouldn't accept. Um, and but it's just so easy to like. I remember last night, like another pastor talked about how like she talked about how she had like high cholesterol. And when the doctor told her, she said right away, like she started praying against that, right, again with her health, and she didn't take anything for it because it wasn't like something that was serious, right? She made sure to say that. But her point was like the year later, when she checked her cholesterol, it wasn't high anymore. And and one of the things she said that really stuck with me is she said, a lot of people wait to pray frantically when there's some big issue. Like, let me know in the comments if you've done that. Where when I see people, a lot of people do it when hell is breaking loose. That's when people start praying to God, like, and they're like, God, help me, like. But we never. She was like, but we never think of praying for the small things, like things that are not that serious, right? But that needs some like some like God control, like needs some God like somewhere for God to come in and like help. Um and I remember thinking, I'm like, that's so true because like usually like when things are going good or things are like, oh, it's okay, like it's something that I can deal with, right? The accepting part, I like usually wouldn't pray for it, right? Or it could come in a form of like, like those little decisions we make, like, oh, like what should I eat? Or I don't know. I'm just giving an example, like something so simple. Sometimes we don't do that. We only do it for like big decisions. But like I feel like we could do it with like small decisions as well. And I think we should. Um, and I think that was just like a great reminder. To It's like ask God for little things. Like ask him for guidance in small things. Like it's like don't just wait for when things are like frantic. But there was so much of a download. Like there's so much to impact, and then today, like her name is PWA. She kept on saying again, like, it kept on ringing in my ear. And she kept on saying, it's not too late. It's not too late. And I was like, how does she keep on saying that all weekend? It's not too late. It's not too late. She kept on saying that. She's like, it's not too late if you want to get married. Not too late if you want to have kids. It's not too late. Like, especially if you feel old. She kept on bringing it up again. And I was like, you know what? How much time do we need to hear that? Because, as you get older, sometimes you're like, oh, well, I'm running out of time. And it's just like, I feel like God was just speaking to me with that. And he was reminding me, like, hey, it's not too late. Like, it's like not because you're not in your 20s anymore. Like, it's like, oh, everything's like done now. Like, and then sometimes I feel like that where I'm like, okay, God, I've done everything now. It's done. Like, no more purpose. But it's like a great reminder. Like, no, like there's still more in store, right? Like, even if you have not seen it coming yet, it's not too late because God keeps His word, especially for chasing after Him. Um, but yes, how often do you pray per day, Keisha? How often are you praying per day? Um, but yes, the control part is like it's a very hard one because I always want to step in and help God. Like sometimes I'm like, oh God, wait. But then now I'm learning, like, the more I see God show up for me, sometimes I'm like, I think it's just better for Him to just show up because all the energy that I waste, like, it's like all the energy that you're wasting, like, thinking about the situation, like putting all your bad power is just like a waste of time. When God could just do it and then you could just go on about your day. Like that's something like I'm learning. Um, Another thing that's stuck in with me is she kept on talking about, and I see a lot of people do this, and sometimes I'm like, oh, why? Like, you'll see people complain about the situation, which nothing, hey, all power to you. We have to deal with it in different ways. But she said this, and she's like, like, if you, for example, are unemployed, if you are unemployed, you don't have to tell people that. Like, you don't have to tell people that you are unemployed. And she's like, you speak it into you speak what you want into existence. So if someone says you don't have a job, you will tell them, hey, you're not lying, but you're like, hey, I'm transitioning and study. And it's like, it made me realize it's like when there's something that's not going well in your life and then someone asks us about it, you don't have to tell them because most of the time what happens when you tell someone, it's either pity or they don't have any solutions and then you feel worse about yourself. And she described it as like you're just condemning yourself. And I remember thinking, I'm like, wow, I never thought of it like that. Like I've had people ask like about, like, oh, how's my mom doing? Or, well, as you know, I'm not that close to my mom. And then it'll always get awkward, right? And then I always feel so crappy and be like, man, I should have said nothing. Because she even called people, she was calling me out. And she's like, some people are too open books. And I realized, like, you don't have to tell people everything. Like, you can answer in a way that by faith, basically, say, hey, everything's good, right? God's doing great things. Like, and that's something I've been learning. Well, I noticed in business, but it's like I never thought about it for my personal life. Now, I'm not saying I share every little thing, but I feel like there's some things where you have to answer by faith. Like in my business, I'm very protective of it. Like I won't tell people just anything. Like I'm not telling you um all my dreams and all that stuff for you to crap down in it. But one of the things she said was, but you want to tell the right people, the people who are faith filled, because they know what to say. And I was like, this is so true. So true. Um, so yeah, that was just my reminder for today and yesterday where there's just so much revelation and it just makes me want to be an even better Christian, just a better daughter, and just continue to grow and continue to know God and on a different level. But I'm very excited about that, and as always, I created this journal for exactly that, where it was like a journal where you could just connect with yourself and get to know yourself more. And I put that in the description. I'm very passionate about that because There's so much noise out there, and sometimes it's just good to like be in your own energy and learn to be in your own energy, be comfortable with it. I think that's very important. So I definitely added that in the description. But yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit about the Balanced Living Conference. I really enjoyed my time there. And there's just so much to unpack. But those are some of the nuggets. Like my goal is to just rest when an issue comes, like, and trust God, like literally not feel like I have to lift a finger because God's got this. I want Him to do the work. I don't want to be like stressing out and doing the work and being in anxiety when He could do it and change a situation like that, right? Like we sometimes underestimate what God could do. A lot of times people, and I get it, like people get in their feelings and then they worry about situations and how this is going to happen. And we try to figure out all the steps, but I'm here to tell you, you don't have to figure out all the steps. Like all you have to do is what you know to do. And then you pray about it. Something I used to do that I learned to do was I would always I would save certain scriptures and acts. And this was a part I would have to look it up, but it was the part in Acts where God talked about how he'd be your provider, he would protect you, like even when you go through the valleys, all that stuff. And I actually used to say that every day. Like I would say it every day, especially when I was very anxious about money, and I was worrying about money. I would always say that scripture every day. Hey everyone who's watching, how are you? I would always say a scripture every day. And then I'll even take walks and say it. And I find it just shifts your mindset. Like when you switch your focus from worrying about your situation and looking at your situation at hand, and you start reminiscing over the word and you basically meditate on it. Like you're reading the word, you're reminding yourself of the word, right? And you're telling yourself, God is my provider. Like you're saying that every time, it helps so much. There's a peace because you cannot move forward when you're anxious and stressed out. I'm saying that. I know it's an automatic comfort zone, but it's very hard to move forward. It's very hard to do anything or figure out anything when you're anxious. Like the worst is when people get laid off and then they're saying, "Oh, I applied for 400 jobs and I haven't got anything." And I'm like, I so wonder why not. Yes, the economy is bad, but a lot of times I think it's like when you're in that desperate mode, which I understand, it's so hard to see progress. It's so there's just frustration because you're like, I need a job right now. And so I'm a big fan. I'm just saying this in general. Of it's like if you're in a job right now, like the biggest tip I can say to you is like you should be applying like at least once a week, like or once a month. Like make a goal where you're applying when you're in a low pressure mode. Like when you know, okay, the job is going good. And you apply in that energy, I think it's always way easier to get the job done. But I find like when you wait till you're sick of the job and you're sick and tired of the job and you hate the job, it's very hard to apply. Like because then your patience, I feel like for some reason it's like your patience runs slim. Like and for me, it comes in the form of like I lose my creativity. Like if I'm sick and tired of something, like it's like I have to do something else to get myself where I'm at peace. Like when you're at peace, everything seems to happen and fall in place. You ever notice that when bad things start to happen, they all like combine? So like maybe your fridge breaks and then your car breaks down and then you get like called in the office by your job. Like it's always like all bad things all at once. It's never like, oh, one bad thing here. I mean, one bad thing here and then one good thing here where you get a compliment. It's usually bang, 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 like of bad things. And they all come at once. So that's like really like it's really good to prepare before the storm comes. Like start doing the things before the storm comes. Right. So like if you know that okay, I'm gonna want to apply to a job in 2 years, it's the time. Like start applying. If you know that you're believing like I just think it's important not to wait till you're in a desperate mode to do it. But that's just a side note. Like, and this could be applied in anything. Um, and you may have to do things to get you there. Like, you may have to um reconnect yourself, right? So maybe that's taking a walk. I don't know. Like, you may have to do things to reconnect yourself, especially if you don't feel as connected anymore. Um, and you have to push yourself. Like, this Friday was so nice because I realized I haven't really taken a day for myself, maybe in the past few weeks, and I had to push myself because I remember like work was calling, and I was like, no, I'm gonna prioritize myself and like go for a pedicure, and then go for Pilates, um, because I know that it always puts me in a good mood. It puts me in a good energy mood, and I think that's very like that's just it's just how it is. It's like our natural way is, oh, I just want to work and work and work. I just want to work towards my goals, whatever that is. And sometimes we put ourselves on the back burner, and it's important to put yourself first, even if you're not there yet. And I feel like it's a form of punishment when we do that. But yeah, until next time, I'm going to see you tomorrow. And feel free to check out the products in the description. And yeah, have a nice day. Bye.